Oh, I'm a born and bred Louisville girl. Yeah, sort of. I mean, some people say Kentucky. That's not really Kentucky, but I mean, I get it. We're different. We're a different breed. Hey, y'all. Okay. This is where I'm just gonna start right from the beginning, making y'all a little angry. We gotta fill up. We gotta fill up at least the first. Okay, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. Come on, you can do one more, John. Right here. Come on. Okay. Well, you got it.
You're observing that, but I'm not ready to experiment with kids.
Well, okay. There's no failure in 5 rows. You know, I love that. I love that. Okay. This is going to be interactive, so y'all are going to have to be like with one another. So the not ready email. Yeah, you're going to be talking to each other at some point during this. So I'm just saving you from what will be future mandated movement. What are you drinking? This pink concoction has me concerned. Hold that up, Kathy. What in the world?
Yeah, it's a dragon drink.
A dragon? You're drinking a dragon?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
It's a dragon drink. It's dragon fruit.
Okay.
Mango.
Oh, nice.
Milk.
Okay.
Milk rather, so yeah.
All right. Well, I'm drinking chai latte, so I'm keeping it real. Okay, y'all. Thanks for being here. Say, whoo, Lord, thank you, that is over with. I was very stressed out about that keynote. I thank you all for being a great audience, for the smiles and the nods. That means a lot to somebody who's up here and talking for an extended period of time. And I'm losing the whole thing, y'all. Okay, so today, this workshop is titled Imagining the Roads Ahead. And we are going to play a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead. If you're an introvert, I am sorry. I am an introvert, and I mean this, John, I do mean it from the bottom of my heart. I am sorry. We'll start with a very nice, playful exercise that introverts are going to love. But we are going to move to playful exercises in which you're going to have to talk with others, likely strangers. And I know, so let's all just take a real deep breath together. Okay, and as my friend, Governor Andy Beshear of the great Commonwealth of Kentucky says, we will get through this. We will get through this together. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about moving from insight to foresight to faithful action. From insight to foresight to faithful action, okay? And this is really rooted in Jane McGonigal's work at the Institute for the Futures. I referenced her in the keynote. I highly recommend to you her book, Imaginable. It's very practical, it's not real dense, but it has all these great playful activities. She's a futurist, and a researcher, but she also creates games, which is a lot of fun. So, this is rooted in her work, and my goal is that this is gonna help strengthen your ability to see the future coming and be ready for it. So there's a difference between responding and reacting. And I wanna help us think about responding. So, who believes imagination is a leadership skill? Okay. How often do you practice imagining? Yeah. If it's a leadership skill, but we're not actively practicing it, how sharp do we think that skill is? Right? So that's exactly what we're going to do in this workshop. We're going to practice that leadership skill. And I want to just give you ground ourselves in Scripture so you can see that I'm not completely off the rails. But there is a theological foundation in this. There are biblical echoes of imaginative trust throughout Scripture. Abraham, in Genesis 15, right? God asked Abraham to look at the stars and imagine descendants he will never live to see. The Israelites in the wilderness, right? They were asked toward a land they have never seen. The exiles in Babylon. God invites them to imagine homes, gardens, and futures in a place they never intended to stay. Mary and Luke, Mother Mary, right? She consents to a future she cannot explain, carrying a promise before there is proof. And the early church in Acts 2, they live in a community that does not yet exist, practicing generosity and belonging before it is socially sustainable. They were all imagining a future. They were all leaders in their own ways, right? So in each case, imagination precedes clarity. And today, we're going to play with unsticking our imagination. So, in the next 30 seconds, it might be helpful if you close your eyes, but you don't have to. I know for some people that feels very vulnerable, and I want to honor that. Feel free to turn your gaze downward, whatever. But in the next 30 seconds, I want you to imagine yourself waking up tomorrow morning. Try to picture it in your mind's eye or describe it to yourself as clearly as possible. What room are you in? What space are you in? What wakes you up? Is it a person? Is it your alarm clock? If you're me, it's my dog. Is it light out? Is it still dark? Which side of the bed are you on? What are you wearing? What mood are you in? Keep imagining your tomorrow morning until you have a very clear answer to those questions. Okay. Great job! You all, everybody, just took a trip to a highly imaginable future. You did it. Nicely done. Yeah? Now, it was probably really easy for you to imagine that future, right? Because it's normal. You know what to expect. You do it every day. And there's really not a lot of uncertainty, hopefully, between this moment and tomorrow morning. Now let's try something a little bit more challenging. Go ahead and close your eyes, and for the next 30 seconds, I want you to imagine yourself waking up 1 year from today. 1 year from today. Again, try to envision this future moment as clearly as possible. Feel free to change as many of the details or as few of the details as you want. 1 year from today, are you waking up somewhere different? Is there something different about the room you're in or the bed? Is someone different with you? Are you physically changed in some way? Do you have a different morning habit a year from now? Something you do as soon as you wake up that maybe you don't do today? Keep imagining 1 year from now until you have the answers to these questions, even ones that might seem a little harder to predict. Okay, open your eyes. Is that a little harder? Yeah. It wasn't harder. It wasn't hard for you, Katie? That wasn't harder for you? Wow, okay, that's good. It seemed hard. Did it seem easy for anybody else? No? Ma'am, what's your name? Can I ask your name? Contra, that was a little bit harder for you? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna try one more. Are you ready? This time, I want you to imagine yourself waking up 10 years from today. 10 years from today. You need to come up with a vivid yet plausible image of yourself, of the space you're in, and who might be with you 10 years from today. Where are you 10 years from now? What do you see, hear, smell, feel? What's the first thing on your mind when you wake up? Are you physically different in this future? Now try not to make this scene a total fantasy. Stay grounded in what you feel is genuinely realistic and plausible for you in your life. Keep thinking about this moment 10 years from now until you have as many details as possible filled in. Okay. Would anybody like to see share what they saw in their future 10 years from now? Kathy. Nice, yeah. Kathy said 10 years from now, she'll be waking up to a retired future in which she will be reclining in bed as her husband is making the coffee. She can smell it brewing, and she is surrounded by four-legged kids. That's how I imagine my future, but it's not my husband, it's my wife making the coffee, which she makes the coffee every morning, I gotta say. Okay, 10 years from now, was that harder? Katie? It was fun. Katie's like, that was fun. Yes, I love it. Yeah. It's for most folks, you probably felt a little bit more mental effort in imagining 10 years into the future. I did this exercise with my kids, and that was fascinating. And they had some real, their ability to really name what was happening in the future for them 10 years from now was really incredible to hear. So I invite you to play this little game with your loved ones, your friends. If you have grandchildren or siblings or, little nieces or nephews, or play it with those around you. And it's a great way to kind of learn what they are imagining for themselves in the future. But it does take a bit more mental strain to do this 10-year in the future exercise. And the brain works harder. Research shows that whenever we do this, the brain is working significantly harder to imagine further in the future. Because your brain will intuitively grasp uncertainty and unknowability. And 10 years out, there's a lot of uncertainty and unknowability. And so it's fighting hard against that. Your brain, there's no other way to say it other than when we do these types of exercises, our brain is creating new neurological pathways so that when we do get to a place in the future that we might have already imagined, it's not so shocking to our system. Have you ever heard of professional athletes visioning a big game, like the Super Bowl's coming up? I'm a little put out that my Detroit Lions had a really not so good year, right? Well, one year we'll make it. Be like IU. Wrong crowd, right? Anywho, but athletes use this technique a lot to think through. They will imagine themselves in the stadium, on the court. They will imagine the roar of the crowd. They will anticipate the smells. They will anticipate, a certain play and move themselves through that. That's called episodic future thinking. Episodic future thinking. And it literally prepares not only your brain, but your body to be in that moment. So where the moment comes, you're not reactive. You're not in a state of shock and making decisions or, behaving under stress. Instead of reacting, you're responding. You're responding in a calm, centered, more thoughtful way. That making sense? Okay. So EFT, episodic future thinking, it's not about just thinking about the future, right? It's about simulating the future in your mind. Think of it as this way. It's a difference between knowing it's probably going to rain tomorrow. It's kind of a fact, a little abstract, right? And vividly imagining yourself in the rain, trying to feel in your body, pre-feel the rain on your skin, and using everything you know about what tomorrow might be like to make that scenario detailed and realistic. Okay? That is the type of episodic future thinking we're talking about. You really have to go for the details. Now, let me be clear, this isn't daydreaming. There's a big distinction between those two. In daydreaming, you kind of fantasize about living a completely different life or waking up in a world where your problems are magically solved. Like for Kathy, daydreaming would have been, I'm in the French Riviera and I'm living in my new chateau I'm overlooking the sea and the wind is billowing through and, my butler brings me on a tray. Maybe that is plausible. I don't know, but, that's daydreaming, right? This episodic future thinking is grounded in what we currently know about our lives and about reality. So it's got some factual basis. And this allows us, again, to pre-feel different possibilities or different futures. It helps us to decide, is this a world I want to wake up to? What do I need to do to be ready for it? Should I try to change what I'm doing today to make the future more or less likely? Because leaders who imagine multiple futures are less reactive, more hopeful under pressure, and better respond creatively rather than defensively. So we're going to play a little bit more with this episodic future thinking, and we're going to think about 100 ways the church could be different in the future. Okay? I think maybe, this is what it identifies. I'm really bad, y'all, with slides. There's a reason why there weren't slides in the keynote. Yeah. Here's what episodic future thinking does. You all can read. I'm sorry. Faith is not certainty about outcomes. It's the courage to live toward a promise that has not yet taken shape. If this is how we understand faith, not the certainty of our outcomes, it's the courage to live towards a promise that has not yet taken shape. Episodic future thinking doesn't predict the future. It does not predict the future. It forms us to meet the future with faith rather than fear. This is why it's important for leaders of faith to practice EFT, because it helps us, forms us to meet the future, this unknown future, with faith rather than fear. I think we're 100 ways the church could be different. We're going to play this game. So now this is the mandatory grouping. I gave you, I tried to be nice. I gave you a heads up. I want you to get into groups of no more than 6. No more than 6. You're going to self-select, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to list assumptions that feel obvious or unquestionable about the church today. So, for example, preaching happens. There is always the proclamation of the Word of God in church. Our clergy are trained, right? We have an ordination process. We have commissioned ruling elders. There's a training that goes along with those. And Sunday morning is still when church happens, by and large, okay? So I am going to give you a few minutes to get into groups of no more than 6, because we're not going to get unruly and rowdy in here. We're just going to have fun. So no more than 6, and together you are going to list as many as possible. Now don't debate it, right? We don't need to get in debate. Just speed is what matters here. Just off the top of your head, as many things that you can think of, and somebody write them down. Okay? You're not doing anything right now. No, this is just naming what the reality, or how you perceive the reality right now. Okay? Ready? Go. Okay, I'm gonna only give you 5 minutes because creativity happens amongst constraint. So you're gonna have 5 minutes, list as many assumptions as you can. Okay, go. Am I cutting out?
A little bit. It might help because the antenna's right back there.
Oh, okay.
Put it in your back pocket.
Okay.
That's what we've done. It's not always a problem.
Sure.
Let's try that.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Missionary work. Evangelizing. Yeah, meeting it.
One church, new church development that's never launched. It's been 20+ years. And a church that's share their financial records. They just want this church to come join them, become partners. That's the point. That's where the merger problem falls. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you one more minute. One more minute. right. Okay, let's bring it back together. How'd you do? Yeah, you got a page? Nice. All right, front and back. Wow, right. All right. Yeah, okay, that's excellent. You feeling good about what you came up with? All right. Now, you're going to stay with your same group. John, this is where the God says, give us, grace and mercy, right? I mean, I believe in you, John. You've already overcome making it. You're an overachiever, John, at this point, because you're not in row 5, you're in row 3. So I believe in you, John. I believe in you. Okay, now you're going to take those list of assumptions that you just made, and you're going to flip them. Here's what I mean. There's now, you remember on the list of assumptions I had preaching, proclamation of the word. Now, in the future, there is no more preaching. There's no more preaching at church. Why? Due to the rapid increase of, quote, nuns and the decline in church attendance, most congregations can no longer afford a pastor. Congregations have embraced the practice as Lectio Divina and or congregational dialogue as their primary way of engaging the gospel. Quakers. Yeah. So with every assumption you all had on your list of what church is like now, we're going to flip it for the possibility of the future. Yes. Todd?
Not necessarily what, it doesn't have to be what we think is actually going to happen.
Remember, that's a great point, Todd. We are unsticking our imaginations. So we don't need to debate whether or not it's plausible or not. I mean, let's not have UFOs or aliens coming in and, let's keep it a little, I don't know, maybe that is something that could happen. But so we don't need to debate, we don't need to edit, we don't I'm going to say it this way, use curiosity over caution. So whatever assumptions you had, I want you to flip that assumption for the future and try to give, like I did in this one, some sort of reasoning behind it. Like what do we know is kind of populating right now that we could give some sort of reasoning as to why we came up with this, okay? The future rewards those who practice imagining early. So you're practicing what could be the future and unsticking your minds. Now I'm going to give you 5 minutes to flip. Ready? Go. All right, you've got about 2 more minutes. One more minute. All right, let's bring it back together. Appreciate it. I've overheard some fascinating conversations. I'm really interested in hearing what you all. So who wants to, let's have a group share out how you flipped just one. Pick just one of your assumptions and share with us how you flipped it for the future. Is there a group that wants to volunteer? Okay, go for it, Todd.
We talked about how an assumption is that an offering will be made and that will be used to flip that by thinking about church being funded by having people rent portions of your building, having some sort of forward-facing retail kind of thing, restaurant, coffee shop or something. Not the expectation that those will come aside.
The entire, yeah. I want to say Todd has actually, and this group has actually hit on something that is happening right now, that the Office of Innovation has a toolkit and coaching to help congregations form what we call social enterprises. And so we see this as a way of aligning mission and money for the congregation to fulfill a need in the community. So it could be something like a community center. It could be a daycare center. It could be an adult daycare center. It could be a coffee shop. It could be any host of things. It's called the Good Futures Accelerator. I think that there are some folks even here today who are walking through that. Kathy's talked about it, yeah. Kathy and the Presbyterian team are very familiar with it. They are actually on a Presbyterian level working with us and our partner who designed that, Rooted Good, in a cohort. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free. I'm happy to answer those. But yeah, you've hit on something that we know it has to be part of the mix for the church and for congregations in the future. Another one, who else wants to share out? Yeah. There would always be a building and there would always be parking was the assumption.
Question,
Would there? Right. Yeah, so they said essentially the building would go away and worship could be online and meetings would be online and it could be at any point, not only on Sunday mornings. Let me introduce you all to Harbor Community Church, a PC USA new worshiping community that is completely online. They meet on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. They meet for lunch on Wednesdays for kind of a lunch brunch talk kind of thing. And then there's also community events. There's a puzzle group. There's all kinds of stuff. That's Harbor Community Church. It's already happening here in the PC USA. Absolutely something that will not only be part of the church in the future, but something that folks are already experimenting with. Okay, another group. I think you all had your hand up. Yes. Music. Okay. Okay, and that was Trish is your name? So Trish, their group said music is kind of a staple. That was their assumption. They flipped it and they said, well, in the future, we might not have music. It might not be hymns. It might be more contemporary worship. It might be something that is pre-recorded. I want to introduce you all to something. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. So I have a little side gig, and I have a podcast that's launching in February, and it's called Barrels, Belief, and Becoming. Y'all, I'm a Kentucky girl, so yes, it's barrels means bourbon. And I needed a theme song for my podcast. Well, I wrote down some ideas, and I wrote down a few lyrics, and then I went online, and there's this place called Suno, S-U-N-O, and it creates from AI music. And you know what? They created, let me see if I can get it to play. Well, I may not be able to. Yeah, right? So that is actually something that if you're a smaller congregation, right? And you don't have live musicians, there's all kinds of ways to think through that. Yep.
Based out of Knox, Pennsylvania. It's a little box, plug into your sound system, program your whole service.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't make it be a church sounding song, just be careful not to make it go too fast that people can't sing.
Right.
But if you don't like your organ, you can have it play a piano or you can have a symphony, and it's all in this little box.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way cheaper than a pianist.
Right, right. And, you know, if we are moving, okay, let's combine, let's associate a couple. Let's take Jeff, right, Jeff? Idea that it's no longer in person, and your idea that maybe we don't have, you know, music as we're used to. Well, we've got online, we've got this hymnal in a box, and it's live streaming to a group of folks all around the world who, oh my goodness, all of a sudden, this is a new way of doing and being church in the future. One more. Okay, Brenda.
A little bit of a spin of whether you're in a building or you're not, together, and it's not a specific leader, but everyone one person might come with a phone, might have a piece of music or just some kind of message that then everyone discusses,
Okay,
and then it would change up each week.
yeah. So rather than having like a set liturgy of what things look like every single week, people, the community is invited to come with their own idea for each element of the worship service. And it switches from week to week. That sounds like fun. That's very creative. I love that. Okay. So, we've now played 2 games of this episodic future thinking, right? We've imagined ourselves 10 years into the future. We've imagined the church in the future. And now I want to give you some tools for how we can identify kind of what might be on the horizon. These are called signals and drivers of change. And this is to expand our capacity for imaginative resilience and to be able to spot drivers and signals of change. And I have some handouts over here. And I have more of the signals of change, but they also have some exercises on them that you can take home and do. Yeah, if you can make copies of the drivers of change, that would be great. These come to us, these were produced by the Institute for the Future. I'm working this year to be certified as a futurist and futuring essentials. So, and again, Jane McGonigal is on staff as a research and faculty at the Institute for the Futures. So drivers and signals of change. A driver of change, that's our VUCA world, we know what that is. So a drivers of change are the forces that will shape the next 10 to 20 years. A driver of change is a large, ongoing force shaping the future, whether we like it or not. Drivers of change are already underway. They're difficult to stop, and they're powerful enough to alter institutions. Let me give you some examples of church-relevant drivers of change. Demographic aging and decline in birth rates. I was telling Kathy earlier today, I saw a graphic, and I'm not sure where it came from, so I'm not going to quote any of the stats, but essentially it showed in the next 10 to 20 years, the percentage of baby boomers who would die from the church and what that might mean when we take that in conjunction with this understanding that in the research of young adults not attending church. It's sort of a cliff we might fall off of. Another driver of change, digital and hybrid community, the rise of that, which we've talked about here today. Declining trust in institutions. Economic precarity and inequality. Increasing religious and cultural diversity. All of those things are drivers of change that are impacting the church now and will continue to have a greater impact on the church 10 to 20 years in the future. Drivers answered this question: what is likely to keep changing no matter what we do? What is likely to keep changing no matter what we do? So then we have signals of change. So that's a driver of change. A signal of change. These signals are a way of training us to spot the future early. And signals is a small, concrete example that hints to a different future that might be emerging. Let me say that again. Signals are a small, concrete example that hints to different ways that might be emerging. Let me go back to Jeff and his group's example. We no longer meet in a building and we meet online. And I said, let me introduce you to Harbor Community Church. They are a signal of change. They are a signal of change. Todd and his group said, well, in the future, it won't just be the giving of the congregation that keeps doors open. It will be some type of community retail shop or gift shop or coffee shop or whatever. And I said, well, let me tell you about the Good Futures Accelerator. And I could give you, we have what's called Social Enterprise Inventory on our website, and it lists over 187 current that we are aware of. Go to pcusa.org/innovation. Over 187, only within the PCUSA, social enterprises that are currently being tested and experimented with across the nation. Each and every one of those is what? A signal of change. A signal of change. This group talked about music is going to be different in the future. Kathy said, we already have this. Yeah, right, what is that? Digital hymnal is a signal of change. Signal of change. They're small experiments, they're local adaptations that are producing unexpected successes. Signals are not trends, they are evidence. Signals are not trends, they are evidence, especially whenever these signals start to mount up. Y'all, 187 examples only within the PCUSA of social enterprise across the US. That's not a trend anymore. A trend, whenever I was in the military, we learned a trend was 3 to 5. That's the starting of a trend. You get up in the 50s, that's a signal. That's a signal. And these drivers of change, they produce these things that we can't control of. And so then we start experimenting, and these experiments give us unexpected successes, and those are our signals that this is the way something is heading in the next 10 to 20 years. Drivers tell us why change is happening. Oh, signals of change. Drivers tell us why change is happening. Signals show us how change is beginning. Faithful, innovative leaders learn to pay attention to both. Signals and drivers of change. All right, y'all ready to play again? We're gonna play Signal Safari. And this is what Jane calls future noticing. And imaginable leaders are able to train themselves to spot weak signals before they become obvious trends. So I want to invite you to form pairs, okay? And each pair is going to practice a future noticing by answering these questions. What's one small but surprising thing you have seen in your congregation or the presbytery? And then secondly, if this continued for 10 years, what might it grow into? What's one small but surprising thing you've seen in your congregations or your presbytery? And then secondly, if that continued for 10 years, what might it grow into? And I'm going to give you 5 minutes to find somebody. Again, we just want pairs, no more than 3. And I'll give you 5 minutes to answer those 2 questions. All right, ready? Go. 2 more minutes. One minute. All right, let's wrap up our conversations and try and come back together.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can, but also Iberian.
Okay. Signal Safari. Give me some examples, just shout them out, of examples that you have explicitly named as signals within your congregation or the presbytery. Yeah. That's a driver of change. Yeah, yeah. A signal of change would be how a congregation might be adapting to that, right? Signal of change. Examples? Yes. Adapting to not having a pastor. Okay, what are y'all doing? This is great. A core group that's dedicated and you keep forging ahead. So can you share with us, what does your weekly worship look like? 100 members without a pastor. That's wow. Okay. Wow. So your congregation in Scioto Valley with 100 members, 80 to 90 every week, that seems to be growing. You're adding Sunday school classes, you're having new ages come, new folks show up. Okay. But they can't afford to pay a pastor with the package that's required. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. And the congregation can't afford that. Right. So how are you all handling like pastoral care and that type of thing? You have a care team. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. 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 We can figure that out. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. 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 So what this sounds like to me is sort of you all are embracing the priesthood of all believers. And we're all kind of stepping up for our community to be what one another needs in this time, even though we don't have a ordained pastor leading this community or this congregation. Okay. Another example. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Like a total, we had our recorded.
Mm-hmm.
They watched that and they realized people weren't watching the music.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't watching,
Yeah.
so they just started a
Uh-huh.
sermon,
Uh-huh.
20
Yep. That's, yeah.
successful.
Huh.
They did a live one by Zoom.
Mm.
And they said,
Nice.
so they had 9 people.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, wow. So you're now an interstate community. That's nice. So I don't know if everybody could hear. They had started recording essentially different segments. So they recorded their organist, they recorded some liturgy and prayers, they recorded the sermon and the choir or something like that. And what they found, because they were observing and they were questioning and they were willing to experiment and they were associating, they decided that they would just put on simply sermon, so just the recorded sermon part, and put that online, and that has become hugely successful. And now they are experimenting with inviting people who are watching. They had a live one, and they're experimenting with that. And they invited people who wanted to watch live to stay after for communion, and they had 9 people show up, and 2 of them were from out of state. That's exciting. That's phenomenal. Okay, I've heard a little bit from Kathy about this group over here in a couple of rows, some experimentation that's happening with 3 different congregations, a new worshiping community. Would somebody like to share with the larger group what is percolating, what experimentations are going on here? Uh-huh. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, so there's a new worshiping community and 2 existing congregations that are small that are experimenting with what might it look like if we come together. And in the midst of that, they're doing the Good Futures Accelerator Toolkit from our office, so that there's a social enterprise component to that to help them with their financial sustainability. And every congregation is involved in how this is coming together. Pretty exciting stuff. All right. I told you all I knew that there was great things happening in this presbytery, so I wasn't afraid to ask that question. All right. So now we're going to do this integration part where we move from imagination to faithful action. And I want you to hold tight to this knowledge that I'm about to share. The future does not ask us to be right. The future does not ask us to be right, it asks us to be ready. So individually, I want you to think about one future that we have discussed today and this time that challenged your assumptions of what you thought the future of the church might be like. It might be that the future of the church is going to be all online. If that challenged you in some way. Or if it's music, we're going to lose our music. Or if it's, we will no longer have the preaching of the word in the way that we have it, whatever it was. Or maybe it's one that wasn't named, but is just really resting with you. And then I want you to identify one signal within this presbytery that's been mentioned that you want to keep your eye on. That you want to maybe be in conversation with folks about. That maybe you have some questions you want to ask. Maybe you want to observe how they're moving through whatever process they're going through. Maybe you want to make some association between what they're doing and you could possibly be doing in your congregation, and maybe you want to experiment with that a little bit. So one signal that we've discussed here in this presbytery that you want to do some follow-up on or with. And then one small experiment that would build imaginative resilience in your congregation. Maybe it's at the next congregation meeting, all you do is how we opened up. With imagine yourself waking up tomorrow morning, imagine yourself waking up in a year, imagine yourself waking up in 10 years. What's one small experiment you can do in your congregation that would build the congregation's imaginative resilience so they too can become unstuck? I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Okay, maybe a little bit more. 3 to 4 minutes individually to sit with these questions to take forward into your faithful action. All right. Y'all remember The future doesn't ask us to be right, it asks us to be ready. And small experiments are how we practice courage without certainty. So I want to spend the last, 5 or so, 10 minutes opening up for questions. What questions might you have? What insights or aha moments maybe you want to share? I want to be sure you all have time to. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Your legacy. Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah, absolutely. Did everybody hear that? Did everybody hear what it was? Mary Beth. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, folks, that's the reality for a lot of individuals. Whenever we start talking about 10 to 20 years in the future, I did this exercise, I guess it was 2 years ago now, with some staff at the national office. Somebody said, yeah, I won't be here, I don't think, 10 years from now. So that's kind of a jarring moment, right? And what's the opportunity in that realization? And Mary Beth, it sounds like you're seeing the opportunity, along with being in conversation with Todd, your pastor, of I may not be here in 10 years, but this last 10 years, or maybe I should think about this as 5 years, there's an opportunity here for me to say, what am I leaving the larger church? How do I want to be really careful and intentional about these next 5 years? It's kind of like a tree that you plant in your front yard that you may or may not live to see it come to be the beautiful, oak with the huge branches and all of that, But that's going to be there. Who else? Yes. Sure. Mm-hmm. Are you saying the organization of the PCUSA? Are you saying the organization of the presbytery or your congregation?
The congregation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Continue. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah, so, well, I mean, I think, again, this is a complex, ambiguous, volatile, right, kind of an uncertain situation. So what I'm about to say, don't hold me to it, right? And I'm also going to say there's not one place that's going to come from. I would say it's going to come from you. It's going to come from your wisdom, your insight, your experience, the skills that you can share with others. I think it's going to come from those that are in the pews. I think it's going to come from different ideas of what training looks like for leading in congregations. I think it's going to come from our General Assembly, who shapes the mission and the work of our church. We are a connectional church. That is in, like, those kind of questions about training for training of clergy, ordination, certified ruling elders, that's all very clear in our Book of Order. And so that's going to have some conversation, right? There's also, like Mary Beth's church and Jane's church, where, they're kind of like, I think we can do this. Maybe we can do this with a commission ruling elder. Maybe we can do this with pulpit supply. Maybe we can do this with, interim pastors. Maybe we can do this with these folks by merging together. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of different avenues that can be taken. Where it's going to come from is us. That's the short answer. And I know it's not satisfying. And that's just it. There isn't a satisfying answer for the times in which we live. And that's why we've got to experiment with different things and different ways of getting to what we imagine and what God might be imagining for the church. Todd.
I just think of, I'm failing
It's an opportunity.
There's something about convincing people that the church isn't the pastor, that the presbytery isn't Catholic. And I'm thinking about it, the presbytery or the General Assembly isn't those people out there.
Right.
Like, we are
Right.
the church.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We are the presbytery. So thinking about it with the presbytery, when people complain to me about things that our presbytery does or doesn't do, I started saying, well, I'd be happy to give your name to this
Yeah.
commission, because
Right.
that's a great idea. And the only way it's going to happen
Yeah.
is if the people who are the presbytery
Right.
are willing to do the work to make
Right.
that good idea.
That's an excellent, excellent, excellent point. You all are the presbytery. The presbytery is not the presbytery staff. It's you all. And the presbytery, or the national office, I'm staff, right? But my work is directed by the General Assembly, which is made up of commissioners from the presbytery, which is you all. So it is, I think, a really good point of we all have to figure this out together. This is our theology. This is what makes us distinctly Presbyterian. Not to mention that we're Reformed and always reforming, right? So, yes, sir.
So I do some live preaching at a church near Todd's church.
Uh-huh.
And I've been moderating in their session.
Okay.
About a third of the preaching they do there while they're looking for a pastor is done by members of the congregation. But at the last session meeting, I listened to them doubting their own ability to do it well. I listened to one lady say, well, I've been slated to preach twice now, and both times the weather has stopped it, and church has been canceled, and I think that's God giving us a message. What I need to do is I need to figure out how to teach them to be comfortable and happy preaching for themselves as lay people. And that means that I don't teach them how to imitate me poorly.
Right.
It means I teach them how to do a good job of preaching the way a layperson preaches.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just thought of that sitting here this morning because of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
That's
a
good.
different thing.
And you're Paul?
Paul.
Paul.
That's a different
Yeah.
thing. But if I think it through,
Yeah.
it ought to be possible, because I know they've got worthwhile things to say. They're just afraid to try to say it out of a pulpit.
Yeah. And there is, there is something that's imposter syndrome, right? Like, I know how, and as pastors, we all kind of have moments all the time, like, I know me. My seminary professor once told me, 80% of the, I think she said 80% of the time, pastors are preaching to themselves. So get over it. You're not alone. And this is, I think, Paul, you're really onto something. What would it look like? That's a great experiment to try as a next step. What would it look like to train folks and help them be comfortable in sharing the word? What would it look like? Jesus was a master storyteller. What would it look like if we taught people to tell their story of faith? Maybe that's another nugget there for you to think about, Paul. Like, what if it's not, okay, we're not necessarily asking you to share, like, to do exegesis on Romans 13. Like, don't worry about that. But what if we invited people and gave them some supports and some coaching and maybe some training or a workshop on, this is how I want to invite you to share your story of faith, your faith journey. Y'all now, okay, I grew up Assemblies of God. Right? Thank you. Keith, I don't know if y'all saw Keith's expression. He goes, right? So my daddy was an Assemblies of God pastor. My grandfather was an Assemblies of God pastor. My great-grandfather was an Assemblies of God pastor. All 9 of my great-uncles, Assemblies of God pastors. My current uncle, my dad's only brother, is Assemblies of God pastor in Pennsylvania today. This is the family business, y'all. And I was having this conversation with Samuel Sun, who is my colleague in the Office of Innovation, and we were talking about storytelling whenever we were in Baltimore just a couple of weeks ago. And I said, I will say this, one thing that I miss from my faith tradition that I grew up in was testimony. Testimony. Because every Sunday night, we didn't have a sermon. That was testimony time, y'all. That was when anybody, and you want to talk about people wringing their hands and getting a little nervous, that was when anybody and everybody, no matter your age, no matter who you were, anybody could stand up and share their testimony. And it could be your life story, it could be what you have learned over the course of that week, it could be anything. What if we invited folks to share their testimony? I have a cousin who, I was telling somebody, Mary, I think it was, that my cousin died of cancer, of colon cancer in January of last year after a 7-year battle. And much like I can't imagine 10 years in the future, maybe it should be 5, Jeff was given 2 years. He lived 7. And his first year, he said, I'm going to make this count. So he began asking everybody he came into contact with, I mean, I was in Target with this man, and he looked at the checkout lady and he asked this question, and I was mortified. I thought I was going to die. What's your spiritual learning? What's your recent spiritual learning? What's your most recent spiritual learning? It could be anything from, I saw this amazing cloud in the sky, and it made me sit in awe of God's creation. To, I was at this really boring workshop with this lady from Kentucky that kept saying y'all. And all of a sudden I had this aha moment that my interim pastor work wasn't to figure out how to get somebody else in the pulpit, but how to equip the saints to tell their story. Innovation, experimenting. You don't got to get it right, you just got to be ready. Katie.
There's a good book by Lillian Daniels, I think it's called Tell It Like It Is, about how to teach people to do testimony in church.
Okay, Lillian Daniels' Tell It Like It Is the book that she's lifted up.
So I didn't grow up in the church, but I grew up with God.
Mm-hmm.
So this is great about the how and the what. I think we also need to spend some time on, isn't the whole point to have people have God experiences and integrate that into their life? So we need to spend some time talking about who is God? What words do you use to describe? What are your experiences of? How do you know? So that people are doing theology themselves. I think sometimes we get lost maybe in the Book of Order or in politics, which I value, but what's it for? It's knowing you are inherently beloved and connected to everyone else. And what does it mean to live that way?
Right, yeah,
So we have to spend some time
yeah.
performing that language.
That's good, that's very good. All right, I'm sorry I kept you longer, but I wanted you all, this was good stuff you were sharing. Let me just say that the future of the church will not arrive all at once. It's going to show up in little signals along the way. And I encourage you to go with curiosity, go with faith, knowing that the Spirit is already ahead of you. Now, go get lunch.